I'm here doing what I do, this podcast, among other things. And if you can tell, my hoodie, you can't really tell because one, you might be listening to the audio, but two, you might not be able to read backwards. But my hoodie says exhausted, and it's the perfect encapsulation of my last year, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. What has made me tired, but in good ways and bad ways. You know, there's the good kind of tired where you're like, I feel like I'm doing the work I want to be doing. But then there's also the bad kind of tired where you're like, I'm doing way too much and it's bad. If you like this podcast, it's going away at the end of the year. And for future browsers of this podcast, you'll already know that. But as this is being recorded in the present, I don't know what happens after this. So let's just, I don't know, start talking. I forgot to hook up my sustain pedal, so I don't have options to do the little, I can kind of do that. My glasses are all crooked. All right. What's up? I just have just silence for the next 2 minutes. Yeah? Yeah, me too. Really? Just a one-sided conversation. I am busy. I know. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Dr. Snedeker, and I work too much. I know. Thank you. And it's weird because even though there are times where I'm like, man, I feel so behind on certain things, or I feel like I haven't gotten to other stuff like I wanted to, it's not because there are days where I'm just gonna today is a day of rest, and then I don't fully rest because I'm not doing proper resting. I'm just procrastinating more than resting. There's a difference. If I were to have a true day of rest, I think it would look something like wake up, have a decent meal, go for a walk, hydrate, maybe indulge in something for lunch, something easy, this walk, I'll turn it into a trip to this cafe and then I'll keep walking or something. And then come home, take a nap, do a 3-hour nap, wake up, have, some other type of nourishing dinner, continue to hydrate, not consume as much media visually, maybe listen to some podcasts, maybe listen to some music, give my eyes a rest, give my ears a rest for the most part too. It's something I noticed that on the days that I choose to take time off, I'm still being engaged with something. There's still something on my to-do list. There's still something in my brain occupying all this space. So, days of rest are interesting when you're a freelancer who has a very weird relationship with a work-life balance. I was talking to some fellow creatives, and I have been talking to fellow creatives on various podcasts too, Bitten Backstage and Life is a Piano, about this year and how much last year, truly, I can't understate this or overstate it. I don't know. I want to impress upon you, the listener. There are people who said last year I learned that I shouldn't be doing so much and then they still do a million things, or they, they're like, I shouldn't be drinking, and then they're still drinking, and it's like, okay, fine, that's fine. It's like the New Year's resolution thing, it's the you at the top of the year, you tell all your friends, you put a Facebook post like, this is the year that I lose 50 pounds and that I'm gonna learn how to do, and then people are like, you go, yeah, and then they don't do it because their brain already got the dopamine hit, so they're like, oh, I already did it. And then when they start doing the work, it's hard. It's like, oh, I didn't realize how much time I'd have to make for it. I thought I could sneak it in like 30 minutes a day, and it's like, no, it takes more effort. Um, and I wear this exhausted hoodie, which has turned into a conversation starter with some people. I went and got gas the other day, and the cashiers were like, "Oh yeah, I totally feel that." It's like, "Is your hoodie say exhausted?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Dude, I feel that. Like it's exhausting living in the world." It brings back I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Jon Stewart on his new show. Well, I guess he was being interviewed about his new show, The Problem with Jon Stewart, which is like an Apple show. So I only see the clips on YouTube. But he was in an interview and he was saying how we live in relentless times where at any given moment, like right now, you could be listening to this podcast passively and then you've already opened another browser and you're starting to read something else, or you're checking Facebook, or you're checking Instagram, or you're checking TikTok, you're liking, you're scrolling, and then, oh, what this celebrity said that about this celebrity, and then, oh, there's a war happening in this country I've never thought about, and oh wow, I didn't realize that Ron DeSantis, look what he said, and it's just this deluge of like just constant input. It's just constant, like, grab your attention, stay engaged. It doesn't matter if it's hate watching or doom scrolling. Like these platforms are algorithmically designed to like keep your eyeballs on it. And I've stopped even like I've limited my my app usage, like with the built-in iPhone metrics, but I've just stopped looking at the weekly breakdown because the nature of the business that I'm in a creative business, social media is a big push forward for those types of things. And whether you want to be the relentless dude who posts every day, multiple times a day, who's like, oh, I've got memes, I got videos, I got, old, clips of old stuff, new stuff. I have collabs, I have ads, I have brand deals, I have endorsed content, I have, all these things that could make up an Instagram feed. And then other people are like, I'm going to just take a picture of hats. And this Instagram is full of hats. Or the dude who was like, I'm wearing a different t-shirt every day and making a video about it. And he did that for like a year and a half and built a business off of it because people were like, oh, he's getting attention. And then the advertisers want to sell against the attention, and they want the endearing relationship, the parasocial relationship between an influencer and the audience that they influence, because it's way easier to have like the D'Amelio sisters sell you car insurance than it is to have some random dude like in a commercial, like, full stop. Like, that's where we're at now. like you're gonna see like Ashton Kutcher is gonna just pop up being like, Life Alert is like, there's just random people who are gonna pop up with these random deals and random endorsements, and we as the consumer are supposed to parse through all of this, and that's where having a level of discernment is so it creates an environment of like, this sucks, because you look at something and you can't look at part of it's just being discerning, part of it's understanding the creative process. I can't look at media without thinking of how it's put together, because it's media. It's not like this like holistically altruistic, like, it's good people just making a good thing and it's fun. Like, it might have started that way, but now you've got different, influencing dollars and influencing, companies and entities, and it deludes the wholesomeness of it. So I'm I'm exhausted by the relentless culture, which is why I had the thought a week and a half ago, like maybe 2 weeks at this point, I don't know, sometime in November, I had the thought of at the top of the year just resetting. I'm going to take time away from my personal social media accounts. I've already been stepping away a lot from Facebook because Facebook is the land. It's the land of the living dead. It's people who've given up living in reality. It's people who are content to just exist in this kind of cesspool where they just are, like it's simultaneously grandmothers being like, "There's my grandbaby," and like, aunts posting like, floral print, life affirming quotes, or like, things with sunsets and saying like, sometimes life isn't what you thought it was going to be, but you never thought it could be this way. Like, and you're just like, just why? Like, I need help. The world needs help. And I get it. You're just one person and you're just posting these isms thinking that you're putting out good intention and manifest. And it's like, we can't just, like, the algorithms are designed for hate, like, explicitly. Like, the hate groups have been quoted as saying like, yeah, Facebook's algorithm is awesome. Like, we were able to get so many more recruits. And then, like, and Facebook was aware of all these. I'm listening to a podcast about the Facebook papers, so I'm like, and another thing. Like, I have all this info fresh in my head of the Facebook papers, at least, the chunks that this podcast presented in 2 episodes. But it speaks to the, like, that's part of the relentless culture. It's just designed to keep you hooked, engaged, like, watch this, check this out, do this, have this. And I'm still in that phase of creating more frequent, regular content, and I have to put my foot down on certain things that I want to double down on, things that I want to have more fun with. There are projects that I have like the social media accounts created. I have like, things drafted. I have footage just sitting, ready to be used for stuff, and I haven't had any time, and I'm exhausted in that sense too, because it's like you're climbing a mountain, and you get all of these cool, like, you have all these awesome stops along the way where you're like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna buy. Oh, this is gonna make the climb even more fun, or oh wow, I'll be able to capture more of the moments, or oh, this will make the trip easier. And then as soon as you leave that shop, like, oh, I bought some new hiking boots, and then you look up and the mountain's taller. And there's like spike traps, and you're like, when did this happen? It's like, oh, it's a new thing that everyone's doing. You gotta climb mountains with spike traps now. It just makes it more difficult. And so I'm exhausted in that sense, where like, I don't have time to do the things that I really, really, really want to do. And 2022 is going to be a year of taking some risks to be able to accomplish these things. Because 2020 was an unexpected pumping of the brakes. Unhealthy habits formed, some necessary habits, I guess, to like cope. And all the while also still trying to work, like trying to, I was on unemployment, but I was trying to do album reviews and still trying to do some networking and still trying to play shows, organize shows, like, it's already hard enough to book a show. Imagine, you don't have to imagine. We all had some version of this where you're trying to plan a thing, and it's like, all right, are people vaccinated? Are people, masked up? Like, depending on what time of the year it is, and it's exhausting. And some people choose to take that as like, I'm just going to ignore everything and just plow through it like a runaway train. And then other people are like, I have to take all of the precautions, and that keeps some level of control, but it might lose some level of sanity. And, I can't tell anyone how to live their life. I can only just express my own personal life and what goes on. Like, this podcast isn't like tune in every week to hear Dutcher tell you about about your life and what you should be doing. I'm just reflecting on, like I said, this hoodie says exhausted. I saw it and immediately wanted it because it encapsulates what, like there's good and bad exhaustion. Like I said at the top, the good kind is like, I have time to rest, but I'm tired because I've put so many hours into something that I'm truly passionate about. And then there's the bad kind of tired, where it's like I feel like I'm constantly working on other people's things and projects and other people's stuff, and it's necessary for me to survive as a creative, to have certain paid work and be able to rise to the occasion. And oh, transcribe this whole album. Sure. Okay. Oh, learn this music in a week. All right, cool. All right, play every genre that's ever existed, ever. Like, no, like the expectation for you because of your talents and training are to be able to do everything. And there's times where I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I'm capable and able to do stuff. But there's also times like, hey, can you learn how to do something, please? Can you help? Like, helping would be awesome. Like, don't just expect, like, oh, well, guess we're doing sound now. It's Dutcher's time. It's like, well, help me plug in something, like, like, or like, oh, well, I don't know how to read music, so I guess he's making the charts. Yeah, that's true. That has to happen. But, like, it would have been nice to know not the day of something. Like, like, I'm exhausted with that. Like, I want to be able to collaborate with people, and I want to use my time and talents, and I'm glad for everyone who asked me to do stuff. But there's times that I'm also like I'm partially because I think I'm approaching 30. I'm going to turn 30 next year, and I'm thinking back on the decade I've had in my 20s. I put in a lot of time and effort that benefited my career. Yes, there's a lot of things that benefited, my education, my degrees, some of the things I got to do through academia, through performing, and also just the years spent in the scene, getting to meet more people, learning about more places, and networking with more people, getting plugged in. But now as I get into my 30s, I'm sick of I'm sick of having to take all these gigs and all these things that are just like, they're not serving what I want to do. It's like if you were an aerospace engineer and you worked at Wendy's and you're like, man, I could be an aerospace engineer. Why am I working at Wendy's? And you start working at Wendy's being like, well, it's necessary because I need to do. I mean, I guess that's a little bit more of a radical comparison than me saying I want to do this music thing versus this adjacent music thing that's not serving what I want to do. So there's, as you can tell, the inner monologue is also making me exhausted. The fact that every decision and everything has some sort of scrutiny, like it's always the heaviest on my end internally, and then other people want to give their 2 cents because they aren't in the music business and they don't understand how anything works, and they might have some idea of how it works, but they really don't unless they live it every day. And there's a time and a place to have your criticisms, but I don't need to be lectured at. Like, why am I always being lectured? It's like in the same breath, like people are like, you're so talented and wow, you're amazing. And then other people are like, you should do it. It's like, shut up. Like if it's another creative being like, oh, it'd be cool to see you like do something like this, I'm more open to that because it's peer-to-peer sharing of ideas versus somebody just being like, you should do this thing that I see because I'm like, do you know how compartmentalized the music scene is now? I can do whatever I want. Like full stop. Full stop, I can do whatever I want. There's so many avenues in the music industry. There are people who are like, especially like when you're only exposed to the commercial music industry, the stuff that's like super high budget, high performing, like thousands of dollars per show to put together, millions of dollars earned every year for labels and, entertainment brands. If all you see is that, you don't understand the music industry at all. You don't. Like, partially because it's about the entertainment value. They're not always going like, yeah, this idea started like 5 years ago, and we worked with a label, and we worked with this designer, and they helped design the set, and then this designer helped with the wardrobe. Like Silk Sonic, that didn't happen yesterday. Like this had been brewing between the artists involved and the teams that they put together for years. At least 3 years, putting it all, working around all their busy schedules. I mean, Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak aren't like, oh, I got a bar gig on the weekend, but I could fit it in on Monday. It's like, no, they're touring. They're probably getting acting roles. Like they're part of this engine of entertainment in culture. And meanwhile, people are like criticizing, like, well, why would you do that? You should do this. It's like, yes, I know certain things are more stable than other things. Why does everyone talk to me like I'm stupid? Like, oh, it's like, okay, it might be out of concern, right? It's out of concern that you go like, hey, I want to see you succeed, and I've seen other people succeed in this way, so I'm just imparting on my observations and telling you what I think would be a cool avenue to try out. Okay, cool. But again, like there's a difference between a peer-to-peer sharing of ideas versus someone who's not in the bit. Like I don't show up to anyone else's work. I'm not going to like a bakery and being like, I see you don't got any sourdough pretzels. People love pretzels. You should make some sourdough pretzels, and then you could sell them and make some more money. Because sourdough pretzels, you could make dipping sauces. You could sell the dipping sauces. Just like, shut up. Shut your mouth. I don't care. I don't care. Can I say that and just not have any ridicule? I don't care. Like, all the non-musician Andys out there being like, you should do. Yeah, I saw Christina Aguilera. She's famous. You should be famous. Yeah, if only it were that easy. If only I was like had half a brain and like, a 12-pack, and I was 21 on TikTok, I'd be making $1 billion a second. Because my entertainment value would be like, oh, I'm just flexing on the haters. I'm just like, and part of this, but you millennials. Like there's the older generation being like, millennials they ruined diamonds, and then the younger generation's like, millennials are basically boomers. And meanwhile, I'm just trying to make a living and trying to pursue my passions, and it's reaching a boiling point because last year we couldn't do anything, and this year we had a weird calendar year. Remember, like February was when restaurants opened in Michigan. February. And then we didn't have full capacity venues until like June because it took 2 months after restaurants opened for there to be a vaccine. So it's like, it makes it impossible to try and plan things. It's in a substantial fashion. It's hard for every planning team on the face of the planet to plan anything because when you're seeing ads for random festivals that you're going to spend $400 and, a handful of Molly on every weekend, there's a whole team of people for half a year working on how to get the messaging out, what their social media marketing looks like. Are they doing any print, any television, radio? Or do they have an income for a billboard? Do they want a billboard? What's the best way to market to the people who attend these festivals? How do you get people motivated to brave a pandemic to go out and and enjoy some entertainment? Like, what other things do they have enough money to support like the same amount of vendors? Do they have enough money to have the same amount of artists? Are the same sponsors there? Are sponsors still even in business anymore? Do these smaller festivals that rely on local investment, are these businesses even around anymore to invest in them? And then on the consumer level, it's just like, oh, I really wish I could go see Beyonce. It's like Beyonce, it literally has to move an empire every time she performs. Like she'll be fine too. Like her systems have she's built a career over like 30 years, like, or 20 years or whatever it is, 25 years. I don't know how old Beyonce is. She's timeless. But from the Destiny's Child days to now, she's got some income. And she's the power couple with Jay-Z, one of the highest paid entities on the planet. In a variety of, entertainment adjacent things. So part of the exhaustion is just coming from you are trying to make the decisions that are good for who you are and what you want to do, and where where your career is feeling like it's being led, and other people are just like, they just want to chime in with their 2 cents. And I get it. Like, you want to see, on some level too, it's like you want to see me succeed, so you think giving me advice will help push me closer to that. And sure, that's fine, but there comes, and I'm a patient person. I am. Like, the fact that the fact that I'm ranting like this for today's episode isn't like, oh yeah, they said this to me yesterday and I'm angry. It's like, no, this has been like a year and a half of people just like, well, maybe you should. It's like, we only have one entire life on this planet, and you want to tell me to go work at a bookstore? Like, what? You want to tell me to go work at like, sure, books are fine. Hey, what's wrong? He hates the bookstore community. No, like, I'm just saying, like, if I know in my heart of hearts the things that I'm talented and capable of, and I have other people who are reinforcing those talents and time and all that stuff, why would I try to do anything else? Like, I have one whole life. And it's time to take that leap of faith. Honestly, like, really take a leap of faith, dig deep, and make this something more sustainable. Because especially after this year and the last year, if I'm still doing this in any capacity, like, you have to recognize that. Like, oh God, he was on unemployment, he wasn't making money from his thing in 2020. That doesn't mean any marker of success. I still had my job and blah 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 blah. I don't care. You know what? The people who survived and were able to remain in their careers should feel very fortunate, because so many people got displaced. So many people had to move from cities, give up dreams, buckle down and have the soberingness of reality kick in like way sooner than they thought it would. And there's a whole like shift in how people think about work now, because when you're just spending hours and hours of your life, like, yeah, where'd you spend your time? Taco Bell. All right, did you enjoy working at Taco Bell? Was it fun? Was it fulfilling? Did you enjoy it? Did you feel part of a team? Did you feel included? Did it feed your spirit? Did it feed your soul? Did it feed your wallet? Like, what about it did you enjoy? Like, reflect on the positives. If you can't think of any, if you just thought, oh, I just needed to grind at a job so I could hustle grind culture and then get money to flex on the haters, like, who cares? Who literally cares? I just want, like, I was thinking about this the other day. The amount of money I want in my life annually is enough money where I can afford to live somewhere on my own, or, in the future with a partner, afford to eat food that isn't necessarily cooked at my house, like, be able to eat out, be able to go, enjoy some tasty food, support local businesses, which ties into another one. Like, I want to be able to, like, if I had the money, I would replace everything I do with local businesses. Like, full stop, because it's more fun. It's more fun to, like, be like, yeah, my friend, she runs a skincare beauty company, and she sells legit soaps and shampoos. I'm going to buy them because they don't have sulfates and they won't dry out my skin or something. Like, that's way cooler than being like, I went to Target and got the Suave. I went to Target and got the Suave. And you're just like, oh, cool. It was a 2 for $5. Like, I've done that so many times, and I'm just bored with it. Like, I've done the cheap I've done the cheap thing that's like, well, this is $2 and I only have, $30 to spend on groceries. So, or on toiletries or something. So it's like, let's stretch that dollar. And I get that. And obviously, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I would do that too if I had money, then congratulations. You're in the same boat as me. Like, I just want enough funds to not have to think about money too. That would be nice to not have to like go month to month being like, oh, someone canceled this gig that I was supposed to get money for. This is going to hurt the next 2 weeks of my life. Like this one person's decision hurt my existence for 2 weeks. Like full stop. Like you can go back and listen to that episode of this gig that got canceled. So that's another reason, if you were curious of like, if I hadn't already explained in the past couple episodes of why I'm leaving this podcast in 2021, is because I want to make more time for other stuff. I want to make more time to feel not constantly like, I want to feel like, oh, I can be working with adequate amounts of time for rest. Like I want to be able to have more of a balance, even if it's like, all right, I'm working a bunch and then I have a couple days off, or I have a week of a more relaxed work week. Like I want to have variety, and that's part of what makes it fun, is to have variety. But it's exhausting to try and have to justify your existence all the time to people who like in the same conversations are like, praising you for your time, your talents and your skills and all these things. And yet they're constantly like questioning and second guessing and not trusting who you are and how far you've come already. Like I acknowledge that I've had help. I acknowledge I've had support. It hasn't all been me. It hasn't all been just me. People supplementing my education, people, whether it's parents or, scholarships or all these things, stipends, the music program, loans for my last year of my master's. It's like, I don't say that I'm the ultimate bootstrap boy and I could pull myself up at any moment and I could dig myself out. Rather, I'm acknowledging that I'm constantly carrying around the life equivalent of the backpack I carried around freshman year at Grand Valley that was like 50 pounds on my back all the time, walking all over campus because I had a giant laptop. I crammed it full of sheet music and binders for different classes. I had all this stuff that it was just constantly weighing me down all the time. And that's what's happening now, but with life. And, that's why I'm exhausted. I don't want to be in that position of being like exhausted in the negative sense. I want to be able to be like, I had a good night's sleep because I put in the work and it felt good overall. And other people would be like, well, work's not always supposed to feel good. It's supposed to feel like work. You should be working. It's like, then clearly you've never enjoyed your life. Because if you're spending most of your life not enjoying your job or what you're working on, then what are you doing? Like, if you don't have any semblance of like, because like, I could go into a field that I learned some skill and buckle down and like remove all emotions and become the alpha man and just make a bunch of money. But that's not fun. Because all you're doing is you just micromanaging money coming in, where it's going, how you're making it, where you're investing it. Like it's exhausting. And I want to be able to give. If I'm going to give so much of myself for other stuff, I need to feel, I need to be in a better spot, which is why the 2 months off that I'm taking from socials and podcasting at the top of next year is going to be to have that kind of radical transformation where I'm not micromanaging every minute, hour, I'm distracted, I'm in one thought, I'm starting a sentence in one text thread and then bouncing over to a Facebook inbox and then checking a DM and then seeing a notification pop up for an email and double checking. what gigs are this today or tomorrow, or what am I working on? What things do I want? Oh, I gotta do this whole thing for this person. I gotta make sure that I have this done for that person. And it's like you just get tired. And it's like I want to enjoy the holiday. I want to like Christmas. Like having gigs around Thanksgiving, that was necessary and it was more fun because it was just gigs with friends aside from one wedding. I mean, it still with friends, but the wedding gig's a little different just in terms of I'm over weddings. um and you know, there's the, it's nuanced. If anything could also be taken from this, everything is nuanced. Like I want to keep doing the things I want to do, and I want to keep making things, and I want to get better at making things. And I want to motivate people to support in whatever way they feel like liking, sharing, subscribing, donating, becoming a patron, offering their house, on a tour, offering food, offering, a place to relax, like I've see those people. I just did that with Ohio, like having a friend to stay at, their house to stay at, that was clean and comfortable, and you could get up and take a hot shower. Like that's literally, if anything, if all went away, if I'm living in my car outside of the studio and only putting money into this office for a year, like if I could just if I had a place to like shower, I would feel like I have at least some sort of starting point. Like sure, not having a house would be awful, but or some apartment, but I think of like all the times I play festivals where it's like if I can get a shower in and like do some laundry somewhere, I won't feel like I'll feel like I'm starting a day and being productive. But that's also not the healthiest thing to think. Like if all goes awry, because that's also what all these comments from other people are reinforcing. They're reinforcing these like worst case scenario moments of like, what if I do mess up something? And then you have to push that fear of failure away because you have to try stuff to improve. And the fear of failure cripples so many people from doing anything they want to do. They don't quit their job. They don't move to a new city. They don't, ask a girl out on a date. They don't take those leaps and try and do things because they're afraid of how it will disrupt a bad time, because they're used to a bad time and they don't think that anything will get better. They just think it'll get worse. So, if anything, I'm exhausted. A lot of thoughts on the brain today. And I'm trying to make these last few episodes as impactful as I can, because it's like, I've invited you into my life for a year, and we've got, had some ups and some downs, some funny stories, some bits, some laughs, some heart to hearts. And, it might have only been with 15 people, but hey, like you 15 people out there who've checked it out regularly or semi-regularly, I appreciate it. And to those of you who are discovering this later, I'm still open to these types of discussions. These types of discussions aren't exclusive to the podcast. They're part of my life. They're part of what I talk to everyone about. I mean, yesterday I was at Dogtown Studios' 3-year anniversary party, and it was like 15 of us, maybe, and we were just talking, we were catching up, all these different creative people in the room, and then we were just, talking about like everything from like, what does selling out look like? Should I, take offers from sponsors? Should I approach sponsors? Like what do I need to continue as an artist? And we were all just in agreement, like, hey, at this point, life is insane. If there's any way you can get some sort of support and you feel good about it, or it feels, there's no, it's not like, I'm sponsored by Facebook, and you're like, oh, the person who the entity that's ruining culture, yeah. I'm the first band to play in Meta. And you're like, why? Don't do that. So it's, yeah, these conversations aren't exclusive to the podcast, and you can feel free to message me about whatever, but not if you're going to just lecture me about, you said on the podcast that you you don't appreciate criticism. Being unopen to criticism means that you are actually you are withdrawn from modern society, and that you need to reevaluate your status as an individual. Maybe look at the root causalities of masculinity and find your, a revival in traditional values, the things that have kept societies going for hours and hours and hours and years and years and years, like monogamy and just like, shut up, Jordan Peterson. I'm so sick of all these people. So sick of them. And the people that, the people who are like, I know how to help. I'm just going to condescendingly talk down to anyone because I have all the knowledge. Even though I don't. I just have, I could speak with some level of authority and people just grab onto it. But is that what I'm doing? Is that what I'm doing a solo podcast? Anyway, thanks for listening to my rant fest. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Again, you can support patreon.com/DrSnedeker, DrSnedeker.com, socials, and we'll see you in the next episode. One of I think 3 remaining episodes, so we're coming up towards the end, but we'll see you later.